Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me? All right. I hope my voice isn't echoing again. All right, let's see now. Is my voice still echoing?
Oh, can you hear me?
Is it still echoing now? Good morning, Mr. Etula.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
It's loud and clear. Okay, great.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. From wherever you are. I can see our mentees are still joining the call. Amina, please help me send a reminder on the mentees group for them to join the call and let them know that we've started the meeting and our mentor is around. Thank you very much again for joining us, Mr. Etula Adu. Today is the week one of the third quarter of JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program. And the topic for today's session is the fossil fuel industry. And I'll be making a few announcements and also reading our mentor's profile before we jump into the main program for today. So quickly, for those of us joining us for the first time, I'll be telling us about JIIPCC. JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program is a quarterly program for students and young professionals in Africa and across the world. Mentees are afforded the opportunity to access valuable advice, training, network, mentorship, internship, discussion forum, industry updates, resource materials from experienced mentors. The program seeks to encourage continuous training, development, and evolution in Nigeria, Africa, and around the world. Some of the objectives of the program is to provide easy access, guidance, training, and resource material for students and young professionals in Africa, to facilitate dialogue and network among experienced and less experienced practitioners and stakeholders, to transform mentees into mentors and leaders for the next generation, and to facilitate further mentorship, internship, scholarship, and job placements for the mentees. Those are what JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program is all about. Our mentor for today is Mr. Etula Adu. As we all know, he's on the call right now with us. I'll be reading his profile briefly. Etula Adu, MSc, MNSC, oil and gas industry expert, holds an executive MBA from the Quantic School of Business and Technology, Washington, D.C., USA. His MSc in petroleum technology from Teesside University, UK, B engineering in petroleum engineering from Gopking University, Russia. 10 years plus of experience in upstream oil and gas production, operation, energy industry experts, and global voice on international energy geopolitics. Worked with major IOCs in Nigeria. Thank you very much for taking out the time to be with us here today, Mr. Etula Adu, and we look forward to learning from your vast experience today. All right, I'll be giving the floor to our mentor to start his introduction to the topic and a very comprehensive overview on the topic for today, the fossil fuel industry. Thank you very much, Mr. Etula.
All right. Thank you. Let me see if I can I just had a brief. If I just email this to you, and maybe this should be. I made a mistake. Let me just screen share. Okay. Just a minute. share. Oh. Uh-huh.
All right, sir. Your screen is sharing right now. You can see your screen, right?
Okay. So
Yes, sir.
generally, we'll be talking about briefly in terms of the fossil fuel industry. We discovered that over the years, because of global industrialization, uh, we as humans have relied on the fossil fuel industry for more than 200 years, and then oil and gas, coal has been part of our daily lives. A lot of products we are using today, the clothes you wear, pen you used to write, and the energy that we need, the fuel we use to drive our cars, electricity that is being generated at home. I mean, it's all part of products of the fossil fuel industry, and the global economy has been intertwined with the fossil fuel industry. So generally, if you look at in terms of what the fossil fuels are, they are kind of non-renewable energy sources that are made from decayed organic materials that in the earth crust over the years. So it demands exploration to be able to bring them out from the surface and then processed to be used. Generally, you will have coal, natural gas, and petroleum or crude oil, as we'll call it, and other aspects of shales and all of that. So the fossil fuel industry is a big industry involving billions of dollars currently. I hope I'm heard clearly.
Yes, sir. You are very audible.
Okay, great, great. So we'll focus majorly on the three main fossil fuels: coal, natural gas, and crude oil. We know that particularly with Nigeria, is really blessed as a gas and oil country, part of the OPEC production that we do daily, currently around the 1.5 billion barrels per day, um, producing as a major producer in the African region as well as the world. So it's very critical that we understand this important um, industry in terms of GDP. Or the crude oil industry is very, very important in terms of GDP in Nigeria as well. So in terms general in introduction, what the fossil fuels are, just explained before that they're non-renewable energy sources. And non-renewable means that they are exhaustible. You will be able to regenerate back again after being used. Unlike the renewable energy sources like the sun or solar, whereby it's regenerative. So you have coal, natural gas, crude oil. Coal is more of the solid form and the petroleum in the rocky areas where it's been mined and after being mined, being processed. Nigeria has a lot of coal deposit also. In Africa, you will be talking of countries like South Africa, which are really involved in coal mining, particularly in power to use for power generation. Natural gas is gas form of petroleum, having more of methane. Also, extracted as part of crude oil explorations. So you have what we call associated natural gas, which comes out of the crude when it's being processed. Some leads to a lot of flaring when it's not being used because of some economic reasons in terms of the oil companies operated within the region. So Nigeria is one of those that are flaring a lot of natural gas, and that has been a concern, which we have some laws that have been put in place to be able to curtail oil and gas companies to be able to invest in natural gas processes for better use. The crude oil itself, which is petroleum, it's very critically used when processed byproducts such as the fuel, diesel, AGO, wax, so many things, ethylene used for plastics, pharmaceuticals, a lot of industry. So the oil and gas industry, the crude fossil fuel industry is very significant in our daily lives. and there have been concerns that it's generating a lot of emissions and climate challenges. So the International Energy Agency has been calling for divestment and stop of the use of fossil fuels. So we need to see how we can move towards the Paris Agreement, whereby we want to work in consonance with the 1.5-degree temperatures below pre-industrial levels. So these are concerns that have been happening in terms of fossil fuel industry. So how let me minimize this. So the fossil fuel industry, why generally it helps us in terms of the energy we require to propel our cars and the petrol that we use today. We have a lot of challenges in terms of petroleum products in Nigeria and Africa as a whole. So imagine a country that produces crude oil in terms of good value ends up importing a byproduct of that. It's just like you have a palm tree and palm kernel you generate, and in the long run you give it to somebody else to be able to refine it, and you buy your palm oil from the person. So it sounds very foolish a bit, but and this is what we are facing as a country, and we refineries are not working. So those are part of some issues. So fossil fuel helps energy require to people our cars, also power our businesses. Um, Most of the businesses in Nigeria now rely mostly on the diesel function and also natural gas. If you look at small scale manufacturing, markets, women, also coal room, you want to talk of people that produce a lot of products. If you go to places like Onitsha, Aba, Lagos, industrial centers, you find out that a lot of people use diesel and also fuel generators. So it helps to keep our lights on in our homes as you are sitting down in your home right now. I mean, using your computer. I bet you if you find out your source of power will either be coming from one of the products of the fossil fuels, either it's going to be from natural gas, reduction value chain, or it's going to be from crude oil, it's going to be from coal. But mostly now, power generated in Nigeria, it's more of a gas uh, being done. So even today, oil, coal, and gas save about 80% of our energy. As a society, the global energy demand is increasing and rapidly, and that has called for more use of fossil fuels. They've been the backbone for reliable, steady energy supply, and that has been a challenge. To replace them has been a big challenge in terms of stability, affordability, and availability of this energy source. There is, in terms of competition with renewables, there's been a good fight. So, in terms of solar, nuclear, and other renewable energy sources, scale up is needed to be able to displace the fossil fuel in the global energy mix. So these are one of the whys and why we actually need the fossil fuels industry and what is being done for us. So if we look at the global energy mix, sometimes let's just do some comparison. 2020, we're saying that the world final energy used by share of fuel. Most recent, I got this information from global data as of 28th of June 2023. You could see that 38%, about 8.7% of oil, it's still being consumed globally. That's 16.5% is natural gas. Coal has 9.7%. Um, for electricity generation, we have still 20.5. In terms of heat for industrial processes, 3.2. Biofuels and waste has around 3.5. So if you look at it, is that in terms of the global energy share, when we look at this aspect, we're talking of energy being used for various purposes. So coal, oil, and gas, as at 2020, still stands majorly as major energy sources in the world. So if you look at it in terms of on the right hand side, you actually see world electricity generation for year 2021, most recent data in June 23. If we compare that for global electricity generation by fuel category, you see that fossil fuel has 1.4%, biomass and other renewables 2.7%. And low carbon fuels, nuclear, hydro, wind, solar, compare that, you have about 35%. So if you add that to the geo and biomass, you just have about, let's say, 38% in terms of renewable mix, and which you could see that fossil fuel still has a big part to play. Then if we break it down by fuel, you see that 6% coal, oil 2.5%, gas 2.9%, nuclear 9.8%, wind 6.5%, solar 3.6%, hydro 15.0%. So these are in terms of global electricity generation by fuel. Coal still has a big part to play, and it's a big challenge, with in terms of emissions. China and most of the Asian countries use a lot of coal in electricity generation. In South Africa, that has been a strong part of it. So the call for the energy transition to also move from fossil fuels to more of renewable sources is very serious. You will have head of COP 28 that is coming up. So the global political sphere is calling for a reduction in the use of fossil fuel because of the climate change. And more than 20% of emissions is being characterized to fossil fuels. So coal, 36%. Oil, heavy oil, in terms of some parts of Europe actually use that for that generation. Gas, 22.9, which is significant. In Nigeria, it's significant use of for electricity generation. Okay, let's just think briefly about the oil value chain, which is very important. The crude oil value chain. The crude oil value chain is divided into the upstream, midstream, and the downstream aspect. So if you look at what we have, exploration has to do with the finding of the deposits, do seismic, and be able to discover where the oil deposit is under the earth crust, maybe offshore, which is beneath the sea, or onshore, um, down where from there. So when that is done, we have what's called the production phase, where it's been extracted from the earth through well, then it's been processed. When being processed, transported through pipeline. So if you look at the top part, that is for natural gas, then transported through pipelines to power generation facilities, for chemicals can be used for electricity generation. For in terms of crude oil, you will see both in transportation and storage, refining, marketing. So the upstream aspect is EMP, exploration and production. Midstream has to do with transportation and storage. So you will see the vessels and tank farms and export terminals are within the midstream aspect. So you will have the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, formerly DPR, and the Nigerian Midstream Regulatory Authority, which is the DPRA. So for downstream aspect, it's more of manufacturing and refining and chemicals. Uh, Unfortunately, most of the refineries in Nigeria are not working. We're expecting that within the next month or so, Dangote refinery, which has a capacity of about 600,000 barrels per day, will come up soon. So this is just a recap for the valuation for oil. Uh, I think for natural gas, I explained that, but if you look at it, you're going to see that in natural gas valuation, the same oil and gas well. So the gas will come from the oil and gas was called associated gas, which mostly in flag, particularly in Nigeria. Then you have gas wells, well, naturally deposits where you have natural gas. That's been through a separation process in terms of production. You remove the oil, water. It's some part is vented, flared. Gas is being processed. Byproducts are removed. Non-hydrogen gases are removed. So you have ethane, propane, benzene, all of that being used as byproducts. Then gets into some serious industrial processes that are going to be used for products, or if it's not possible, like for most offshore facilities, you end up being vented and flared. And there's a price cap flaring. There is a global chain for regulations that has to do with flaring, and Nigeria, I think it's about $2 per mx square foot for flaring. So, and then the gas is being compressed, sent to mainline stay and sales lines, compression station, or it's going to be stored underground. And in Nigeria, generally, we don't do all of the underground gas storage. We do into transmission, then to the power generation facilities called the GENCOs. And the GENCOs actually sent to the transmission line. From there, it's being distributed to homes. So you have a national gas company, NGC, particularly in Nigeria, for industrial processes, like places like in Lagos or Aba or Onitsha or Ogun State. You will hear of the Agbara Estate, where most of the manufacturing company, FMC, such as Nestle, Fusion, all of that being use natural gas for manufacturing. So you also, if the gas is not being used for power generation, you can store as LNG after being processed, stored and exported by LNG vessels to reach out to the global market where gas is being needed. So you look at production, transmission, and distribution. That's like the gas pollution in terms of where you see from the graph we have here. And then, more importantly, that's very clear to us, I will talk about gas power, which is significant in terms of fossil fuel. And generally, I've talked about the exploration and production. So you will normally be having a long-term contracts. We have gas sales agreements whereby the gas producing company will have agreements with processing facilities as well as gas transmission companies to be able to share contract agreements. So most, I think, most of you guys are here has to do with law students. So you are having some terms of contracts that has to do with gas health agreement and then specifications for the gas, the type of contract length, period um, will be stated and all of the specifications. So exploration and production too, you go into processing, then in gas is pricing and become an issue. So the other line below, you see this the challenges that are involved. So you have wellhead and crew theft. These are issues that are involved within the from exploration to process. You have direct theft, you have also gas theft. But more of gas theft is not done more in Nigeria because by the time you tap into the pipeline, you just have an explosion, which I think the survival rate would be very, very, very high. It's very minimal. So they do more of oil theft than gas theft. So in terms of gas pricing, the infrastructure between processing and generation, we don't have so much pipeline infrastructure in terms of Nigeria to be able to help generation. So then you go into utility and financial stress from generation to transmission. So you have delays in terms of these challenges. You also have from transmission to distribution, you'll be having issues of transmission losses. So, like for power generation that is generated and through the national grid, you have loss in line from the grid down to step down to distribution level for states and communities. But there is price distortions in terms of between the transmission companies and distribution companies. We are seeing that I think it just 1st of July or so have some increase in the electricity tariffs. So these are some of the challenges we have. And from the distribution to the consumers, we have sabotage, theft. People don't, they just tap or boycott the lines and tap, and some people don't pay their energy bills. So collection has become a problem. You have the Nigerian power holding companies having challenges in terms of installation of meters to be able to have proper collection of the money. And so areas whereby you don't have that, you do manual collections where remittances is becoming an issue to the company. So that's been a challenge. So for the coal value chain, you normally have resource production, extraction, same processes, extraction and transportation. So you have the coal reserves, coal mining, which is more of an extraction and production. So preparation for the process aspect in terms of coal preparation. So you do the separation, clean coal, use water, then utilization to look at the power generation system. So you have feed coal and energy conversion you can be able to use for electricity generation and other use of coal. And then in conclusion, generally, so there are several options that exist to transition away from fossil fuel economy. We have the hydropower, biomass, wind, geothermal, and solar energy. That all are reliable sources of renewable energy that have been growing parts of the world. So it has been this call to move away from fossil fuel to renewable energy sources. And the oil and gas industry, the coal industry has been mandated to be able to reduce emissions. And these emissions have impacted on us globally. How can we move forward? Is that the net zero 2050 agenda and that has been agreed based on the United Nations Climate Pact is very significant. And the oil and gas industry, as well as global partners, are working hard to see that emissions have been reduced significantly. So this is a huge challenge. Um, we believe that so far you've learned a bit of what the oil fossil fuel industry does for every one of us. I didn't talk much of the figures. Maybe over time I can be able to tell you significantly in terms of the figures that has to do with fossil fuel industry. All right, thank you very much. Just a brief share. That, okay.
All right, thank you very much,
Hello.
Mr. Thank you very much, Mr. Itsuladu, for that very in-depth explanation on the topic and also the presentation. Some of our mentees want to know if we can get the slide, if you can share the PowerPoint presentation with us. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
And also, I think for some of them,
I should stop sharing right now, right?
Yes, you can stop sharing. And I think for some of them, I don't know, they were complaining that they can't hear you clearly. I don't know. All right, so okay, we'll be moving on to taking our presentation from our mentees. So I hope the presenter is available and ready. You can start your presentation now and share your screen.
Thank you very much to our special mentor, Mr. Itsuladu. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. In fact, after seeing your PowerPoint presentation, I'm almost tempted to hide my own presentation because it's nothing close to what you presented. Yeah, so let's just get to it. So I'll share my screen now. Thank you. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right, thank you very much. I think the first question is what is fossil fuel? From what we've heard from the lecture and what we've prepared, fossil fuels are hydrocarbon containing materials, are materials that contain hydrocarbons, which are energy producing, which most industry use to produce their energy. So the major type of fossil fuel we have, so fossil fuel is hydrocarbon containing materials such as coal, oil, and natural gas. From our earlier mentor, they are produced naturally, and it takes almost 200 to 500 million years to produce. So we'll move on to the major types of fossil fuel is the coal, oil, and natural gas. I think from my own research, I discovered that each of these elements have different different ways of being produced. Take for coal, while coal is produced by what I would term the natural crackpot. For those who have read some documentaries on cocaine and how they produce cocaine, you see cocaines are produced probably they put it in a tube and then they are cooked over time. So I think that's a picture of fossil fuel. Fossil fuel are cooked over time by nature. For example, coal is a type of fossil fuel produced by dead plant organisms that have over time sedimented. I think they are exposed to both pressure, time, and heat. So the environment naturally cooks dead plant and dead plant materials and rock to produce coal, while oil is actually produced by water organisms. I think they are produced by microorganisms that are found in swamps and all that. Why natural gas is a mix of both of them. I think natural gas is produced by overcooking coal and oil. So that's major types of. So coal is a hard substance which is black in color, composed of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and sulfur. So it's usually found in sedimentary rock deposits where rock and dead plants and animal matter are piled up in layers. So while coal is mostly of plant materials cooked over time by nature, oil. Sorry, I think you can't see my screen. Sorry. Yeah. So while petroleum here is oil, petroleum is, I think, is gotten from oil. So while oil here is usually from microorganism from water bodies, I think. Yeah. So that's it for oil. Then natural gas is a gaseous fossil fuel that is also composed mainly of methane and is also formed from the remains of ancient marine organisms. So natural gas I think, is a combination of both marine and plant, whereas coal is mostly from plant and oil is mostly from marine organisms. So that is it for the sources of the major types of fossil fuel we have. So causes of fossil fuel, this is the phenomenon I will call or tag as the natural crackpot, where dead plant organisms, marine organisms are exposed to time. We're talking about 20 to 500 million years to produce, and pressure, because they're sedimented deep down in the earth's crust, and then there is the heat. So because of that pressure, it cooks the dead plant and animals to produce either coal, natural gas, and oil. So from you can read organic matter accumulation. Asian plants and animals die and accumulate in large quantities in swampy or marine environments. Heat and pressure, as more layers accumulate, the organic matter is buried deeper and the pressure and temperature increase, leading to the transformation into fossil fuels. So from the earlier presentation by our mentor, we saw that the fossil fuel industry involves the upstream, midstream, and the downstream. So mining of fossil fuel should fall under the category of the upstream, which involves the exploration of this natural resources of this fossil fuel. So mining is used to extract solid fossil fuels by digging, scrapping, or otherwise exposing buried resources. And this, so I think basically the type of fossil fuel will determine the type of method to explore, will determine the type of exploration method to be used. So if it's for coal, I think mining is in place, and largely for other fossil fuels. So that is for mining of fossil fuel. In the next is importance of fossil fuel to the industry. One of the questions I reserve for our mentor is from the PowerPoint presentation I saw. I saw a pictorial representation of transformers. So I wanted to ask, I already know that the major source of illumination, that is light in this major source of light, home light and all that is it's gotten from water, I think energy dam, electricity, so to say. So I was a bit confused during the presentation. So importance of fossil fuel, we have energy production. This energy is used for fossil fuel exploration and mining of fossil fuel um, is used for all energy requiring industry. For example, industries that produce machines, cars. In fact, basically everything we do in this life requires some form of energy or the other. So economic impact, the exploration, mining. In fact, the energy sector is one of the largest sector in the economy. It produces not just employment, but also creates utilities, creates equipment for basically creates economic improvements. It gives opportunities, contributes significantly to the revenue of producing countries. So like China, their production level is out of the charts. They produce cars, different equipment. So they use the fossil fuel to do that. So it creates economic impact, creates jobs, creates economic reserves of some foreign countries and all that. So infrastructural developments, the extraction, processing, and distribution of fossil fuel have led to the development of complex infrastructure such as oil refineries, pipelines, and power plants. So the industry of fossil fuel, the various power plants we have that generate electricity for a nation is a direct result of fossil fuel industry. So trade and commerce, um, even in a remote sense, energy is traded in the stock exchange, I think. Yes, and oil is traded also. So it's traded as commodities, but there are also other not necessarily being quoted in the stock exchange. Is also sold by countries to generate revenue. And technological advancements, the pursuit of fossil fuel extraction has driven technological advancements in exploration, drilling, and refining processes. So yeah, so like I said, when after our mentor finished his PowerPoint presentation, I was almost, tempted to hide my own PowerPoint. But this is all we have for today, and I thank you for the audience. Thank you very much. I think that's that.
Thank you very much, our presenter for today, Ebube, for that wonderful presentation. I would leave it to our mentor to comment on your presentation and give any corrections. Before we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is question and answer session, I will encourage everyone to put on their video. I'll be taking quick screenshots of everyone on the screen on the call for our LinkedIn and Facebook posts. Thank you very much as you do so. Kindly just face the camera, smile for the camera, and put on your video. Thank you very much. All right, thank you. Keep smiling. All right, yeah, I've taken a few screenshots. So I'll be giving the floor to all our mentees to ask their live questions. As you can also see, mentor has sent a message on the chat box for everyone on the call, and I will also be taking the questions for our mentor. But I don't know if anyone has any live question. Kindly unmute yourself and ask our mentor. I just heard our presenter asking a question, so the floor is yours to properly ask a question.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Right.
I think our mentor has already answered it in the chat. I think that was the question I asked. What is the major, electricity? What is the major raw material for generating electricity in Nigeria? Which answer to be as natural gas. Another question I have is, what does flaring mean? And flaring, because I saw it in your PowerPoint presentation. What is the role of flaring in production of natural processing of natural fossil fuels? Thank you.
I heard complaints. Okay, so I'm just going to have my port maybe by my mouth. Is my volume clear now?
Yes, it's very clear.
Sorry, I think this earpod I was using didn't. I didn't notice on the chat that people were complaining. Maybe the coordinator would have interrupted me at that point, so it would have been better for me generally. So in terms of let's answer that other question I've actually sent on the chat. Generally, natural gas for Nigeria at its whole, it's more of natural gas being produced in terms of processing transmitted for power generation, and we'll see that sometime in during the early eras of Goodluck Jonathan's administration, Yaradura, and also the ending part of Passenger, we had a lot of constructions in terms of independent power plants, IPPs. So that helped in terms of using natural gas, a lot of generation companies. So what happens is that the IOCs, in part of their agreement, because most of the oil that is being produced comes with what is called associated gas, which is gas that is dissolved in oil. And then when that is produced, the oil is being produced, significant amount of the natural gas. And because of the economic reasons, Nigeria as of then hasn't had much of use for the natural gas. So there's no LNG facility to be able to use that gas. So, and as part of gas monetization, power generation was actually implemented to be able to help in terms of before now we used to have a lot of the hydro and a lot of hydropower used to be significantly what it is. But as the oil and gas industry improves and the government actually invested into power generation facilities, that we are using what we call gas turbines. So they use gas turbines to generate electricity, and that is being transmitted through the national grid and distributed to the people. So 70% of natural gas is being used in our electricity generation, and 27% it has to do with hydroelectric. And now we have solar, all of that comes in. So gas flaring, in terms of when you talk about gas flaring, we are looking at a situation whereby gas is being burnt when natural gas is, when oil is being extracted. So you have the gas, as I've talked about, called associated natural gas. It comes with the crude oil. So this practice has been on in the oil and gas industry ever since the inception, more than 160 years. So there are a lot of constraints that would make an oil company involved in natural gas flaring. First thing first is to look at the availability of the market for the gas and some economic constraints. So let's say, for instance, we discovered a huge deposit of crude oil and somewhere offshore in the Niger Delta. And the focus is more into oil because it's much more easier for us to be able to process and sell to the market. Natural gas will demand installation of processing facilities. We will need to have a market for the gas before getting huge investment. So oil companies initially looked at it is that, well, if there's no economic value, if there's no market for the gas, then it has to be flared. And that practice has been on, which is having an impact on the environment. So it's just burning the natural gas for oil production facilities. That is gas flaring. So for lack of proper regulation can also actually cause that and political will. If there is no strong regulation in terms of holding to accountability the oil companies, then some companies will just decide to pay the fine. Nigeria, I think the gas flaring for MF score is about $2 for MF score. So if I discover that I don't have the market for gas, then I can actually flare. And that also helps in terms of operating the facilities for offshore facilities. the need to flare to be able to maintain pressure in the processing plant. So that's a bit of the gas flaring. But currently, there are global regulations and on emissions reduction. So the United Nations, the International Agency, the Nigerian government is calling on all IOCs to be able to reduce flaring. So how can that be done is to be able to get involved in gas to power. You've heard of the gas to power. So part of it is that oil facilities within a cluster will be able to take off this natural gas and convert it to electricity. Those are easy ways to do that. Or particularly with Nigeria, we had the Nigerian liquefied natural gas company that was established to be able to handle flaring. And that has helped a lot, but we still have a long way to go in terms of flare reduction. Is that clear a bit?
Yeah,
Hello?
thank you so much. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Itula. I think I also sent the question that was sent before the session on the chat box. Is the fossil fuel industry what has led to the fuel and diesel we use today?
Okay, and so now in terms of that question, I have a two way to look at it. Generally, because over the years in terms of global industrialization, we know we had the coal era, and now we oil and gas. Then we're moving into renewables and all of that. Global demand for reliable, affordable, and cheaper energy has caused us to be able to use part of this because fossil fuels generally have high energy density, meaning that the energy or the power that's going to be generated from just one barrel, what you get from one barrel of crude oil compared to solar, it's high in terms of energy density. For fuels such as your petrol and diesel, I mean, used to generate power or run your cars, you tend to understand that it has high density. So we are looking for cheap and reliable sources that we will use to power our society. So it's not the fault of the fossil fuel industry, it is the demand for energy that has made us rely mostly on the fossil fuel industry. And for instance, technology wise, we have the ICE's internal combustion engine that was invented when crude oil boom, particularly from the US, started and all of that. And technology wise, we started having automobiles that has been invented, and more of it is combustion. And the world, as the world moves away in terms of technology and also transportation aspects, moving from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles, you will see the departure away from the use of petrol and diesel for transportation. So for now, as much as the fact that majority of the cars that are being used globally, particularly within in the third world, is more of fuel-based, petrol-based cars, then we will rely on the fossil fuel industry to meet that demand. As the society departs from that demand or the technology is being scaled up, then we'll see that yes, is going to be dropped. Diesel, particularly in Nigeria, for small scale industries, we will find out that we have a lot of diesel generators. The more we use solar power, the more we will depart from using diesel. So, not the fault of the fossil fuel industry, is society and how we want to run the economy. If you look at what is happening in Europe, within Russia and Ukraine, when the gas issues comes into play, Germany and Central Europe, most of the UK and all of that use a lot of natural gas in terms of power generation and industrial processes. Russia had to cut off the supply of natural gas. And you see how it affected the society. Production of food, used for natural gas is used for fertilizers and all of that. In terms of petrol, so many things. It disrupted the global economy, and departing away from fossil fuel has ripple effect on society. Till we have stable supply, such as hydropower, solar energy, to be able to fight with against the fossil fuel, that we can be able to say yes, we don't really need for the fossil industry. So we not the fault of the fossil industry, but it's energy demand. The demand for cheap, reliable energy has caused us to be relying mostly on it. In Nigeria, I mean, look at it. The majority of the cars that are used are not electric vehicles. So, and that will cause us to be able to rely on it. Now, if you want to talk of the heavy industry, such as transportation or aviation aspect of it, you have your aviation fuel. It has high density. Kerosene is being used also, so it's high density to be able to propel these planes to move from here to there. If you tend to have, let's say, I think there are technologies coming up with solar planes, which it's kind of difficult. You can't be able to have that. So till technology is being scaled up, we are going to rely. So imagine your trucks that used to transport goods and services will rely on diesel. Okay, somebody's hand is up. Blow some.
Hi, good
Somebody
morning.
blow some. Yes, good morning.
Yes, can you hear me clearly?
I can, yes.
Please, I want to ask a question and make a clarification.
Go ahead.
So, yes, in the course of your explanation, you mentioned that in the processing of oil,
Yes.
that there's some gas, there's the production of gas.
Yes.
Am I right? Yes.
Yes.
So I want to ask that gas that is a byproduct of the processing of oil, is it different from natural gas as a fossil fuel, or it's the same thing?
Okay, so it's the same. So what you have is that natural gas as a whole, gas itself is 80 plus 95% methane. Then with other associated gas, we call them propane, butane, ethane in the value chain. So petroleum, crude oil is a mixture of what? Liquid hydrocarbons as well as dissolved natural gas, which more you will have in methane. So immediately what happens is that under pressure and high temperature in the Earth's surface, by the time you extract crude oil out of the ground and to the surface, get to the atmosphere, it's the gas that is dissolved in the crude oil flashes up. So for instance, you have a Coke bottle and you have carbon monoxide and carbon, I think the CO2 in it that is dissolved to keep the bubble. So immediately you open your Coke bottle, you will see that bubble out. So something like that happens. And that gas is more of methane, which is natural gas. We clear.
And
so that natural go ahead, please.
okay, yeah, there were I have two questions. That's why. So that was one.
Yes.
Yes.
So just to do so, what happens is that there are also natural gas deposit existing on its own without oil. So those wells are called natural gas wells. Those are pure natural gas, methane. So natural gas will have a mixture of both some impurities as well as gases like nitrogen, sulfur, sulfur monoxide, and also carbon monoxide in it. So and other liquid that is called condensates, which are heavier hydrocarbons. So that system is going to be a natural gas process for processing. Then the one that has a crude deposit, crude oil system will have we call that gas associated natural gas. So they are all natural gas. Okay,
Thank
yes. Second question, please.
Yes. Also in the course of your explanation, you were saying that it's not is as a result of the high demand for energy by society that has led us to a large dependence on fossil fuel, right?
Yes.
Yes. So I want to ask, is it that fossil fuel is like cheaper. It's like a cheaper source of energy generation than the renewable sources of energy like hydroelectric and solar. Are those ones more expensive? And if they are more expensive, do you see Nigeria especially moving towards that area in, like, let's say, the nearest future because of the cost, given the type of nation that we are? Thank you.
Okay, all right. So, because of the development over the years in terms of the oil and gas industry, and how technology has scaled up, the advancement of the oil and gas industry in terms of technology used to be able to reduce cost has helped so much in society. So, imagine before having a solar panel would have was costly very much, but as technology scales up, China has been able to make it very easy. So we have a level whereby, in terms of, one important thing is that energy density, the affordability and the reliability, as well as stability of that energy supply is very important. Now, the problem with solar and with some of the renewable sources, particularly, that because of, like, now you need for solar, now you need the sun to be shining for it to be generating electricity. And because the sun is not always there, wind also needs to be blown to be able to use wind power generation. But I mean, the crude oil is just there. You bring it out, you store it. Gas is there, and easily generated, and they are stable. They have that in terms of your natural your grid electricity generation. We call them stable grid suppliers. They are there, while the other ones are intermittent. So to technology is being scaled up, cost is being reduced to be able to see that yes, solar is competitive enough and is stable enough. So that is why we are talking about energy storage in terms of battery storage for solar to be able to fight against in terms of the fossil fuels. Hydroelectricity, nuclear power generations are also stable. But in terms of nuclear, because of nuclear proliferation, in terms of nuclear is being used in terms of war issues and all of that, and also nuclear waste management, society is being concerned, like the Fukushima issue that happened in Japan, where a lot of things, radioactive elements were released. If you heard in Ukraine, Chernobyl. So those are concerns. That's why many people don't want to get involved. Governments are fighting against the use of nuclear. Nuclear is stable. Hydroelectricity in Norway. Norway is a big oil producer, but most of the power is being generated from hydro. But this challenge in terms of water supply, flood, drought is also a big challenge on hydroelectricity. For Nigeria, we have the water, we have the resources. But I mean, government will, investment into it, development in hydro. Those are factors that are affected, or else we don't have any challenge in terms of using hydro. I mean, it would have been a big part of it in terms so that we will not rely much on the fossil fuels. Okay.
Thank you very much.
And Chiwendu, okay.
Yes, sir. I have a question. There's been a recent clamor for renewable energy and low carbon output in the energy industry. So how do we reconcile this with the fact that fossil fuels, even nuclear energy, as you have stated, pose like more energy durability, sustainability, and reliability? So how do we ensure that ensure that
You're being
how do
cut
we
off.
ensure they last longer for us? How do we ensure?
So your question is, how do we ensure that is it the fossil fuels or this nuclear energy and all these other renewable sources last longer?
No, how do we ensure that the renewable energy lasts longer for us? Since we all know that fossil fuels
Okay, so in terms of
more durable,
for
they
instance
last
now,
better, they are sustainable.
all right, okay. So in terms of the most important aspect is scaling up of the new technologies and so that we can help in the adaptation of renewable energies. So you will hear of battery storage. lithium battery that's being used generally in electric vehicles and your mobile phones and all of that has the capacity to be able to store energy. So what is happening is that for solar or wind generated electricity, we want to see that we can be able to store enough amount of energy, electricity, so that when it's being demanded, it can be used. Improvement in battery storage will help stability of supply, but the technology is still not that strong. It's still upgrowing, so and it costs a lot of money, and the mining processes involved in lithium and rare earth metals for use in terms of battery storage is also a problem, because some oil and gas analysts and also anti-climate guys are like, you say fossil fuel is bad and all of that, but if you look at the mining process for lithium batteries that you use for battery storage in terms of solar energy, the carbon footprint also is also bad. So this comparison is affecting every angle. So for us to be able to rely strongly on solar for grid stability, we need advanced technology in terms of battery storage. That will help, so that when electricity is generated intermittently, it's being stored and it's going to be supplied to the grid. So battery storage is a big issue that needs to be scaled up. If that is done, it will definitely help. And also, we're looking at hydrogen energy generation and also other sources of power generation. So something like nuclear, fine. Nuclear has a problem in terms of waste, nuclear waste, and also it can be used as a weapon if the country. So imagine maybe what North Korea is doing generally currently now in terms of their advancement. Iran, those are issues that the global West is looking at. So if Iran has these nuclear developments and all of that, they're going to use it as a weapon against other countries. So these are areas that we can be able to talk about. So these concerns are there. So scaling up the technology will help to be able to lower these concerns in terms of we relying on fossil fuels. Okay, are you there? Have I answered your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Do we still have any question on the chat box?
Let's see.
Okay, that's the question she just asked, right? Chiwendu quickly. That's the question.
Yes, that's the same question.
Yeah, that's the question she just asked. So I don't know if anybody still has any question. You can raise your hand and ask your question before we end the session for today. Once again, thank you very much.
I've sent an email to, I think, the invites for the meetings for the presentation is there, so you can share the presentation.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, sir. Once again, thank you very much for joining us today and for sharing from your vast experience of knowledge, Mr. Itulan Adu. I thank all the mentees that are on the call and also the group for putting up the PowerPoint presentation and also the presenter for today. Thank you very much. I think with this, we've come to the end of the session for today. Any question you have at any point in time, you can always share with us. That's our mentees, and we'll do well to share it with the mentors and get back to you on the answers. I think with that, we've come to the end of the session for today. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a lovely weekend.
All right, yes, thank you very much. I'm actually pleased to have you guys all the way. I'm actually not in Nigeria right now. I'm in the Middle East at work. I had to do a shift and I didn't sleep over the night. I had a very, very busy night with my plant's facility. So, but I had to sacrifice to be awake this morning. Be with you guys. Sorry for the initial disruption in terms of the audio.
Voice.
I think the slides you can be able to understand better.
All right, thank you very much. I will share the slides with the mentees. All right, bye-bye, everyone.
Okay, then. Bye, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. You can always get me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much, sir.